Good morning and also good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andre from the Good City Foundation. So I'm very honored to have following panelists, Andrew from Sino, Nicholas from HPA, and also Gonzalo from JO, and also Sankar from Arup. So our topic today is about the Asia Urban Transformation Dialogue. And well, first of all, thank you so much, Beyond, for having us here. And we'd love to talk not just about Asian cities, but we based in Macau, and we would love to also talk about Macau. So before our dialogue starts, may I just have a show of hands on the floor? Is there anyone on the audience here from Macau? Raise your hand if you're from Macau. Or I guess most of us are from the foreigners. And so the following conversation, we would be highlighting we would like to curate a panel and also curate a conversation to learn more about, comparing with Hong Kong and also maybe a few cases from Asia, as Macau has just recovered from the economy loss due to the pandemic. Macau has been suffering a huge loss in the employment rates, and also the IMF has predicted that the economy in Macau would bounce up by 58.9% in this year. But how? This is the key questions. Would Macau remain the same as the casino, gambling, hospitality, and tourism, or the Macau government seems to be also running the new show, running the new long-term development, as in the next 20-year plans in transforming Macau into also information technology driven, with more sustainable energy driving, new land reclamations, maritime resources developments, so to drive the Macau to not just be the service sector, service hub, but also more sustainable development with technologies like constructions, green, and so on. It seems that the Macau government and also the special administrative regions trying to drive something new and sustainable. But what do the neighborhood, Hong Kong, would think about it, and how Hong Kong can play a role to support our brother Macau, and also maybe some other similar regions like Malaysia, who also run the casino city, Singapore, which also run the casino city, and maybe other cases that our experts here today from Hong Kong and also from other regions would like to share. So I would love to first pull off the panel and also expand the scope a little bit about what you guys think are the latest trend on city, especially on the urban renewal. Especially Macau is not a new city at all. It's a very much a region of legacies with a lot of establishments already, a lot of old towns, old regions, similar to Hong Kong, a lot of old buildings. Renovating city is not easy at all. So I would love to know more about the latest trends on city renewal, and also what kind of technologies on constructions and smart city that you think may be trending right now that Macau may apply, or some experience from Hong Kong. So we'd love to maybe first of all, starting a little bit from Sankar, and then we have Gonzalo, Nicholas, and Andrew in the following. Sankar.
Thank you so much. This is Shankar from Arup. I lead the digital services for Arup in East Asia. So talking about cities, what pandemic has taught is basically a tourist city like Macau can suffer during pandemic. We have seen Sri Lanka, we have seen Nepal. So it is very important the city has to be resilient rather than being one economy, which is like casino-based economy in Macau. And it's really important for the city to become more diverse in terms of generating new type of economy and attracting new type of talent. That's probably the first starting point. Without attracting the right talent, without having the right infrastructure, the city cannot be sustaining another pandemic. I think that's the first point, that Macau started with quite a lot of rail infrastructure construction, which I was told just last week that Arup is actually helping designing the upcoming rail in Macau, the monorail, etc. I think that's the right way for city to go and connect, with Hangjin, connect with Zhuhai, connect with Hong Kong, so that the economy can be, it's not 1 + 1 is 2, but 1 + 1 is 10. So that is the right way that the city is already looking forward for the next 20 years or 30 years. Probably I will pass it to my colleagues to start the initiative.
Thank you. My name is Gonzalo Portellano. I come from Hong Kong, precisely just around the corner. And you were mentioning how cities like Macau have been suffering for the last 3 years of the pandemic. Hong Kong is definitely no exception. I think that one of the biggest learnings, and I come from the real estate sector, although I'm an architect, and my world is basically the interiors, what happens within the buildings, is that Hong Kong has had the real estate as one of the key pillars together with finance. Whilst the financial world hasn't suffered as much, a lot of the activities that were taking place before the pandemic have continued throughout. Real estate have experienced an absolute and drastic change in the levels of occupancy of those buildings that historically have been 98, 97, 99%, depending on which areas in the CBDs, fully occupied. So what we're experiencing now is that the pandemic has taught us to work from home, has taught us to adopt different hybrid ways of working. And now what we have in our cities, and Hong Kong is an example of that, is high vacancy rates that give us an opportunity to open a debate and to discuss what are we doing to regenerate cities from the building standpoint, from what is happening within those buildings. And this is a very interesting debate because for the first time we're thinking and we're actually seeing interest, and perhaps my colleague from one of the biggest developers can elaborate more on that, of thinking office buildings, which is traditionally the core of our CBDs, as a way of displaying all sort of functions. And that covers all the way from anything that has to do with community, collaboration, meeting, entertainment, even to some degree, and this is happening still more in Europe and the US, how to think office buildings as a residential place for some. So this all sort of wide range of options, which in reality, it is related to the idea of maintaining the portfolio. And yes, these are not very old buildings. However, we're thinking how to repurpose them so that there's they make sense in the way they are today. So this high rise will be there in 30, 40, 50 years. So what is the best use that we can make of them? This is the current debate that we're having within JLL, but also all of my competitors and certainly most of the key developers around the region. For us, it's a fantastic opportunity. And at this moment, the sky's the limit. So we're seeing that these buildings can adopt a new function we haven't seen before, which is the idea of not just being seen as 9 to 5 buildings that are occupied during the work hours. These are buildings that are open to many more opportunities. In the end, occupiers are paying rent 24/7, right? So how to make those spaces more inviting, more welcoming, from the actual fit out of the space to the rest of the amenities in the building, how to make those places a community center, a place where you feel like a member of a club. There's just so many ideas that it is a very good moment actually to rethink Hong Kong, in my case, because that's where I come from, but many other cities in Asia, in ways that we have not seen before the pandemic.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. I'm Nicholas. I'm an architect. I think Macau has done a very good job because in the past 10 to 20 years, a lot of the development has leapfrogged. There's a lot of new development, infrastructure and reclamation and commercial mixed-use projects. Whereas Hong Kong, we have layers of development over the past, let's say, 5 decades. So there are definitely a lot of lessons that we can learn from Macau at the same time. Macau is quite special in a way. A lot of the workforce is from Zhuhai, which is highly connected. There's a lot of reclamation, for the demand for flat land to do resort, hospitality, casino projects. And now the way that Macau is going forward to be a sort of regional hub in GBA for hospitality or for logistics or even into a secondary financial market, I think that would change the demographics of the people coming into Macau. And any city like Hong Kong and Macau, it's all about connectivity. It's connecting the old town with the new town, connecting business to the people. So another interesting thing is a lot of the business are going green or ESG, and I'm sure Sino, Andrew will share more in a bit. From a B2B perspective, but increasingly so, consumer, tenants, or buyers, they demand transparency as a consumer on the ESG side. So the data transparency, if the developer or the buildings can offer these consumers there's more value, there's more demand for such a new behavior change. And I think this 2C model is not just happening in Hong Kong or Macau, but also across Europe, across Asia, and also US. And there's often a disconnect when we work with or work on projects instead of deal with a consumer-based platforms. But nowadays, I think as architects or agencies or engineers, we can no longer think of building connectivity in terms of a bridge, in terms of a building, but we need to work on the digital connectivity, the digital infrastructure that binds the user experience with the building efficiency and also with the city planning as well. Perhaps I'll stop here and pass it to Andrew.
Right. So my name is Andrew Yang. I work for one of the major developers in Hong Kong called the Sino Group. So we have assets in residential, commercial, industrial, hotels, shopping centers, and we also run property management services, security, cleaning, etc. So quite a diverse group. Now, I think most speakers shared the ambient that the whole world was affected by COVID. And that change has been fundamental in affecting all of us, affecting how we run assets, but how we sell assets to customers. So one of the fundamental, I think Hong Kong, similar, Macau and Hong Kong, very similar to the global community that we've been hit by challenges. So for us as a responsible developer is how do we connect with the customers in terms of the asset, the products that we offer. But I think several points, I think Nicholas touched a point. One of the key things we are seeing out of it, of course with COVID, people are concerned about well-being, about healthy cleaning and touchless technology, safe environment. We do see a reduction in uptake in office space, but the leasing rate has not really gone down that much. I think, thank goodness that I think Hong Kong and Macau probably offer quite a different ambient. We don't have much facility to work from home, so people still have a tendency to go in. But I think there's more demand by corporate to allow staff to be able to work partially from home. So it's not the full uptake of office space that I think we see some reduction. But it seems so far that the uptake has been sustainable and maintenance. But one thing we do see very much is people are demanding different environment. They're demanding more, what are you doing in ESG side of things? So like for example, energy saving. As landlord, we are very much into providing a lower energy consumption base. We're not so much about how our tenant serve or use their power, but increasingly people are saying, what infrastructure are you putting in place for the customer to enjoy lower energy environment? So we see consumer change about the need for sustainability. Consumer wants to go for lower energy, lower carbon footprint. So the ESG element comes in. And for developer, I think it is a challenge, but it also serves as a vast opportunity for us to do something, to win the customer, to differentiate ourselves from different customers. So I think that will be a very hot topic. Some of the things we do look at is long term. How do we ensure zero carbon? How do we ensure sustainability? What are the building materials that we would use in the future, etc. So I think it offers quite a lot of challenge, but vast opportunity for developers and city to really move forward in the next decades, 2-3 decades ahead.
Thank you, Andrew, and everyone. So I would love to challenge the second questions to all of you, maybe starting from Andrew first, because your corporate is originally also from Singapore, not just Hong Kong. And as Nicholas mentioned, the city has to be going greener and also going more neighborhood, community friendly. So Singapore has been doing quite a good job in keeping the city green and also sustainable, also very resident and citizen driven. what would be your lesson? Well, I know you are from Sino, Hong Kong, not exactly Singapore, but in your experience, is there any cases of not just successful case, but also maybe really the big takeaway or historical lesson learned from Singapore in your experience that not just Hong Kong can learn, but also maybe a city of legacy like Macau can learn in terms of transforming an old city into a place where it can be greener. What would be the biggest challenge, and usually what are the roadblocks that Macau you think may face in the long term?
Right. So if we look at new development versus refurbished old development, I think we look at two dimensions. It's much easier to do something new, of course, where you got a brown land or something new, you can do something. And Nicholas, as a designer in the area, can help us as a developer do something. I think the major challenge will be when we refurbish. This is where I think your example of Singapore has done far superior than some of our other cities. I think it's a matter of government-driven policies, but also the private sector coming to us, that notion of contributing to the green ambient. So one very practical example will be if we spend more in green technology like indoor farming and beautifying, but do we get advantage in plot ratios? Because for developer, it's very much down to the bottom line, the dollar. Do we get advantage in terms of relaxation in government policy? But I think as a city moving forward, Hong Kong, from us as a developer perspective, we're very much into contributing to creating a very green environment for our customers. Because two things, we want to differentiate our product. But second thing is the customer are demanding for those better ambient. So we do spend efforts in some of our environment to provide more green environment, indoor farming, engaging our tenants in green farming, etc. But it's not direct return on investment, but it's winning customers' loyalty to us and us as a branding product. But I think as the city is moving forward, that will make, every city is competing. Hong Kong is competing, with other city. Macau is competing with other city in the GBA, and we see the neighboring city in GBA are all doing very well in the area. But I think as a community, as a global community, we all have a responsibility to move forward to make the city better. But it's really a government, private sector joint initiative to move forward with government-driven policy, national vision to do something, but the developer community could come in to differentiate its product. I often say technology is not a problem. We see a lot of technology around here, a lot of very good technology that can be used. We see technology from the globe coming to our region to be used, but it's more the vision to achieve, mission to driving. And maybe I think Nick can probably share a lot more from a designer perspective, but we do see the global desire to move in that direction.
Do you mind if I just jump in on that? I feel that Hong Kong is doing quite a lot of things better than Singapore. Maybe I'm a more strong Hong Konger. So we play according to the strengths. I work with most of the developers. The general tendency is that what is the big advantage if I'm going to put a small solar panel on the rooftop? Is it going to make a tangible innovation? So the question that comes to a project director is not just innovation for the sake of innovation, but tangible innovation. So technology definitely plays a bigger role. I do work with different developers. So somebody said, if I put a green on the rooftop, really what is the outcome of this? Or if I put another 100 solar panels, I can't even charge my USB mobile phone. But rather, what we are trying to do using technology is, can I engage the tenants in the ESG? ESG is not only the developer's responsibility. ESG is not only the facility manager's responsibility, but the people who stay in there, like you mentioned, people are going to spend more than 12 hours a day. What is their contribution to this building to make this as a green and sustainable building? So we actually engaging them in a gamify way. So can I encourage them walking 10 floors up, not taking a lift, and by giving them a right kind of reward? and making them feel that they are serving a common purpose. So Hong Kong is actually going in digitalization of ESG so that people are all engaged. Right now, that is being implemented in at least 2 buildings that we are working on in Nanfung, as well as Henderson projects, where we're deploying technology to engage and make it fun, so that if you're bringing in 5,000 people residing in that building, part of your ESG campaign, and then you do 1 building at a time, you're bringing in a lot more innovation than putting 10 solar panels, which is only for credit checklist. So I think Hong Kong is doing far better in some areas, and I'm really proud that Hong Kong is doing, and Macau can learn from that. We don't have to simply copy what Singapore does, but we can actually go ahead and use the technology for the best tangible outcome. Sorry, I'm voting for Hong Kong here.
Yes, Gonzalo.
Well, you're not the only one. Yeah, I've been for many years a frequent visitor to Singapore and had the opportunity to observe how they took off in terms of much more sustainable approach. And again, I'm going back to my field, which is the buildings. But I can't agree with you more. In the end, it is the tenants, it is the occupiers who have a lot to do and say. And what we are seeing is that a big percentage of our clients have ESG plans, net carbon footprint reduction, like tangible numbers that they want to achieve for their portfolio in the coming years. So somewhat this is a driving force to other developers, and I would say that most of them are already on board, which is great news, to also make sure that the portfolios, whether it's new building or whether it's refurbished building, they are actually compliant with some basics in regards to energy savings. So there is that bottom-up demand because the tenants, the occupiers, which are the corporations, are expecting to have that for their portfolios. They would not permit themselves to be in a premise that doesn't have a certain conditions. We want to walk the talk. All of our red tier, which is our first tier projects, that's how we call it in JLL, are green, are LEED and WELL Platinum certified. Everything else is either gold or at least certified. So we want to make sure that we're not just simply offering this type of advisory to clients, that we are actually proving it in our own portfolio. The benefits are tangible. Sometimes tangible is not necessarily something that you quantify in terms of numbers, which it is as well, but it is also the level of consciousness that our own employees and our own colleagues get to learn for themselves. There's an element of education. There's an element of understanding that this is coming down in the end to the individual. We all become communities that are corporates, that are companies. Those companies are the ones who are basically forcing the demand to change and the building portfolio, the building stock to evolve and reinvent itself. Sorry, I think we're hijacking or derailing your questions, Andre.
Nicholas, do you have anything to add on? I know you have just come back from the Middle East, so any experience you may have from the Middle East or even maybe Hong Kong or Macau?
Yeah, I think the gentleman already mentioned a lot of points. I think Singapore is a very different animal because the governance is a lot more effective down to the execution. So it is very much a government planned approach. The private sector is less competitive than regional competitors. Hong Kong is the reverse. The effective governance into execution from the government side is very ineffective. But that breeds sort of very highly efficient, highly profitable, and highly competitive private sector, including consultants, developers, innovations, so on. So that is intrinsically the difference between the two cities in terms of the DNA. And for Hong Kong, we often look at Singapore not because of what they have accomplished, but it's how we can work closely together as partners for the region. Because there's a lot of things that Singapore can do in the ASEAN region that we can't do. And there's a lot of things that Hong Kong can do and Singapore can never do, especially doing business between East and West and so on. But I think it goes back to what Andrew also mentioned, is at the end of the day, it's about incentive. Charlie Munger often said, show me the incentive, I'll show you the result. So the incentive is one thing for government to push top down with the project owners and consultants and developers to go faster and more accurately. But bottom up is the consumer behavioral change that will shift the demand towards from traditional conservative mindset to more ESG minded. So this top-down plus bottom-up approach will gradually shift where we're heading going forward. And like everyone has already mentioned, innovation in Hong Kong is growing, but it's not just the technology itself, but it's the ecosystem of innovation policy, of green or sustainable financing, of talent training, talent pool, visa schemes, housing, education, so on. So I think Hong Kong relatively is still very, very competitive, but there's a lot to work with our regional partners.
Right, definitely. And Nicholas, you have also just mentioned about the talent attractions, and I mean, city are not just doing their own job, but as Macau is situated sort of at the heart of the Guangdong province, Macau plays a very important role to create synergies with neighborhood like Zhuhai, Hong Kong, and many other neighbor cities in Guangdong. So my next question is maybe starting also from Andrew, seems because I know Sino Group has also been investing heavily in Greater Bay Area. And definitely also Arup and JLL has been doing a lot of jobs in Guangdong province as well. So we'd love to start from Andrew first. There's a grand plan in Macau to sort of renovate, reclaim more land, and also renovate, and as in building more connectivity by technologies and also workforce, so that the city is not just serving their own interests, but also creating more collaborative synergies with Zhuhai and Hong Kong, sort of in the grand plan of Greater Bay Area, right? And so my question would be, we are all from Hong Kong, and very interesting to say, like, what do you think Hong Kong can actually play more regarding, not just Hong Kong serving our own interests as well, but also what Hong Kong can do with Macau, so that while Macau can also ride on the piggyback on the financial hub like Hong Kong, but also how you think Hong Kong can serve the interests of Macau as well as in the plan of GBA?
Right. This question comes back to the fundamentals, is how does people behave, whether you compete or you partner. And I think the modern world is about partnership. So, someone asked me the other day, the SDG 17 goals in SDG, which is the most important. We look at it all as a partnership, because if we look at innovation, development is all about partnership. So I don't think Macau needs to compete with Hong Kong, nor Hong Kong needs to compete with Shenzhen or Zhuhai or Guangzhou. I think the whole region, GBA needs to compete with other region, but within the GBA, I think we all have strength and weaknesses, and each territory would kind of do their things, and I think we can all collaborate to make each other better. I think Hong Kong, for example, Hong Kong has a very international airport, but the Macau airport runs supplementary supporting services. So financial sectors, Macau is very much into its entertainment area. But I think when we go forward, Hong Kong can contribute to Macau. I mean, the gentlemen, the consulting fraternity, the professionals, the technology platform can really help Macau contribute Macau's growth into the next state of city development that it wants to get into. We see a lot of innovation from global converging in Hong Kong, but not just for the Hong Kong market. We all know Hong Kong is a small market, and tech company wants to do business across. So I think we can all help together. Investment, but partnership, I think, is the key. Technology, bringing different players, trial in Hong Kong, work in Macau, and then further development in the mainland. I think that model will goes on. But I think partnership is what take the whole community forward in terms of city development.
So, and maybe Gonzalo?
Yeah, I think it's it's almost impossible to not to think that in 2047, and in the case of Macau, 2048, there will be a full integration with the mainland. So we only live 80, 90, 100 years at best. So it's hard for us to think, in those super long terms of 20, 30 years from now. But the reality is that I think that partnership model that you were alluding to it has to start building now to become a full reality by then, when we don't have those borders, when really we can think of a region of 100, 120 million that is very well connected. So I believe in the model of specializations. I think that by now, every of the key GBA cities know what they're good at and know what they can excel at in coming years. And I think it should be pretty much reinforcing that specialization. Probably we don't want to now think of Hong Kong as a place for, casino entertainment. That would be unthinkable, the amount of infrastructure and what it takes to get to what Macau has built, right? But I think that combination of different assets and specializations being seen as a region that you can literally cross north to south, east to west in barely, couple of hours or less. I think this is the real power. I mean, we have the population of France plus Germany combined in a fraction of the space. So it's just so many things that can be at once that I don't see at the moment any other region around the globe that can offer so much for, in such a well-connected and small space. So I think this is the real asset. So I think the partnership starts now. I think the partnership is almost, the destiny of the entire region.
Yes, maybe I also chip in a little bit of some questions too, besides the role of Hong Kong for Macau, but also chip in a little bit. What do you think maybe also the role that, the young people of Macau should prepare as well to, as Andrew and Gonzalo mentioned, collaborate with Hong Kong and other, other generations or other talents from other regions?
I think your first question and second question are related in my view. Being a small city, we cannot compete with our neighboring cross-border in terms of population. So it is always about innovation. But when it comes to innovation, talent pool, as we know, Hong Kong is suffering. Similar is across the border as well. So my thought process is if Hong Kong can partner with Shenzhen on creating the Lok Ma Chau Loop Innovation Technology Park, Macau is coming with Hangjin, and they should leverage on doing innovation. The way I see it is not just only being a casino city, but can they provide casino IP? Because that's the best of the knowledge. Can they start creating IP from casinos? But fundamentally, this needs innovation, talent pool. So education is important. That's where Hong Kong can help them. And similarly, how to run a very efficient science park, which was not, we were good always, but we were never good in like marketing and branding. But today, the Hong Kong Science Park is actually known across the world to run the best of the innovation system. We are able to attract enough startups here. So can Macau leverage their knowledge of casinos, which is probably equal to Las Vegas, if not better, which is not there in anywhere else in the world? Can we start creating IP? But in order to create IP, you need to create a talent pool and an innovation ecosystem. And that's what Hong Kong has learned over the last 20, 30 years. So probably Macau can look into that innovation ecosystem, talent pool, and education, and etc.
Yeah, maybe any last 1 minute, any words from Nicholas?
No, I mean, I think everyone has sort of covered the subject fairly well. I think on a grand scale of things, the best talent, the best innovation, the best capital from mainland and all over the world will go into GBA going forward. And the best of the best will settle towards south of the whole Bay Area. And the role of Hong Kong has always been being the international center between East and West. And the more international Hong Kong continues to be in terms of business, economics, tourism, talent, then the value to GBA, Hong Kong's value to GBA will be even more apparent, becoming a magnet to attract the best of the best to settle in Hong Kong. And of course, Hong Kong have always worked closely with Macau because of the spillover effect. Hong Kong has a capacity issue. And Hong Kong has been mentioned many times to be the international center for Belt and Road. So Hong Kong is the only sort of crossover point city hub between Belt and Road Initiative and GBA, which forms a dual circulation going forward. So I'm sure the entire GBA community will work closely with Hong Kong going international as the gateway.
Thank you so much. And I think that's roughly the end of the time. So to wrap up, I think there are a lot of takeaways and insights about Macau. And in the long term, definitely we expect more occasions like Beyond to connect Hong Kong and Macau, not just for business investors, but also young talent together. So once again, thank you so much, Andrew, Nicholas, Gonzalo, and Sankar. So thank you so much, and pass time stage to Karen.
Thank you for the wonderful sharing this morning. Before wrap this up, we have a couple minutes for question. So from our audience, anyone want to take this chance? Yes, please. We have a gentleman there. Please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, James Cunningham, Sustainable Clothing Production, based in Hong Kong. Let's do some crystal ball gazing. What is Macau as a city like in 10 years? Best case scenario.
And who you want to give the question to?
Who would love to take the crystal ball?
Yeah, whoever wants to take the crystal ball.
I think if a city can aspire to be a sustainable living environment for its citizen, I think that's what every city inspired to be. I think Macau, the way I see it, Macau has its natural tendency to be serving the entertainment area. But a livable city for Macau, and especially as you grow your land resources, it may become quite a diverse city and I think that is what, in my opinion, every city needs to have an aspiration to do something for its citizen, and that's what I would think it should be.
Maybe my thought, Macau is like a limited edition. It's not a mass market. So you need to keep it as a limited edition to make the maximum luxury value.
I think in 10 years' time, when GBA is in full force, the lines between cities will be very much blurred and fully integrated. So given from the two Congress meeting, I think Macau's role will be very important. But some people, I'm not saying I am, but some people might compare Hong Kong and Macau versus Singapore and Sentosa. And I don't think that is a wrong comparison either.
Thank you. I would like to add one more thing on that. And then this is a really inspiring panel this morning. I think I live in 7 years in Hong Kong. I think part of the amazing piece of the city, including Macau, Greater Bay Area, is the diversity of talents and then people. And then, in fact, Beyond is trying to become the expo to bring more talent and the technology into the small city as a window to connect to Greater Bay Area. So this is the third year of hosting this panel summit, and then we look forward more in the future. And I do have a question from my side if I have the chance to take this. I think in the urban development, like most people will live in cities in the future in a couple of years. And I had a chance to visit Saudi Arabia for MISC Forum last year. Something really cool about this country is the capital city. 70% of population is under 30 years old. And then now we know like China is actually facing an aging issue. We have a decreased population, and then the effect might only can be seen in 10 or 20 years, while we have the climate disaster happening. So long and short, if each of you can give us like a word or recommendation for our young audience, like your suggestion, like industry areas, if back to when you're 30 or 20, like what would you make different decisions on your career or what you do, which leads you today? And then we can keep it short. Or perhaps we can start from the moderator, like or Andrew. Or Andrew, thank you.
I think for young people, just open-mindedness and willingness to pursue, because the world is changing so fast. So I think for any young people in the audience or in the community, the willingness to pursue technology that can change the life, it doesn't matter it's biotech or the gaming technology or entertainment technology, but I think surely technology will change how we live and how we behave. And for any young people in pursuit of that, I think that will be the key.
I would add to that, be flexible, open-minded, and really think of the entire world as potential good place for career development, for personal development. I think COVID hasn't helped in keeping our borders open. I think we've all struggled with that at some point. I think we should probably reverse that to some degree, and really thinking that, one is born wherever you're born, but in the end, your career, your individual, even your personality and your learnings can be built upon all of those experiences that you have overseas. I mean, I'm sure everybody around in the panel has had that experience. I'm originally from Spain. I live very near Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and coming to Hong Kong, travel around Asia. And I would not change a bit of that, because I think that's what really makes us all global citizens. And in a world that is going to be even more connected through technology, this is something that we cannot just take for granted. When we have been deprived of the ability to move around, that's when we have also understood the importance of having those borders open. So I hope that is enhanced even more in the future.
To me, I think resilience is very important because failures are very, very important as much as the success. Both of them don't, come and stay for a long time. That's the good point of success or failure. So make sure you're resilient. Inner resilience is very, very important. It's a long journey. It's not a sprint.
Nicholas, you want to give?
I mean, they said it all. But I think resourceful will be important as well. There's a lot of easily accessible resources through friends and innovation these days. So being resourceful or smart, smart working, that would be very important. Yeah, give you a competitive edge.
Thank you. You want to end this, Andrew?
Well, I'm the youngest here, so I think my thought. I mean, I totally agree with what everyone said here, and keeping ourselves entrepreneurial every day, and so keeping open, flexible, resilient, resourceful, as in entrepreneurial. I think in the future there's no fixed full time for every one of us. We'll be more like multitasking every day and also wearing different hats every day. But one thing that we bear in mind is trying to do good. We are not just here earning money, but also doing good, so that our next generations, our sons and daughters, would feel good to live here.
Thank you very much. And I will look forward to see you next year in Macau again.